Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi there, I'm Amanda Stevens and welcome to another episode of Retail Renegades, where we explore the inside secrets of retail success stories, disruptors and entrepreneurs who are shaking the establishment, carving new niches and challenging the traditional bricks and mortar retail model. We've got a big show today, so be sure to join us on social media using the hashtag Retail Renegades. Now, my guest today epitomises a retail renegade. Catherine Roberts is the owner of The Showroom, a collaborative retail space in Brisbane in Australia. Part retail, part online, part pop-up and part shared working space, Catherine is taking traditional retail and online channels and she's mixing them, mashing them and turning them upside down literally. And as a result, she's developed a very unique business model that is not only working, it's building a tribe of loyal customers. Along the way, she's completely rewritten the retail rulebook and today she's here to share some of those insights with us. Catherine Roberts, welcome to Retail Renegades.
Thank you for having me.
Now, your story is fascinating, your background. You came to Australia in 2010 from Canada and you're a trained historian. So how does a Canadian historian come to Australia and open a retail showroom just 4 years later?
Yes, well, I was living in the UK working on my doctoral thesis when I met my Australian-born husband, and we decided to start our lives here. And I had no idea at the time that I would find a dream of my own and start a business of my own. I was teaching history at universities in Sydney and in Brisbane, and I started a blog as a way to meet people who liked the same things that I did, to show friends and family back home what I was up to. I started social media along with that blog, and I found a community of people here in Australia. It wasn't very long ago, but blogging was quite a different scene. It was the heyday of blog conferences, blog comments, and blogger meetups. And so through blogging, I really found a group of people who were doing interesting things in the sort of digital entrepreneurial space. And I became quite fascinated with it. So I started my first little online store of products that I wanted for blog photos. Mason jars, cast iron skillets, that kind of thing that I couldn't find in Australia that I was used to having from back home. And I started a market stall really early on in the piece as well, because even though I had a digital audience to open the online store to, orders were only trickling in. And I thought, if I could have a real world presence to bolster the online, I would be able to get a much bigger audience much more quickly. And that's what I did. From the very beginning, I used my little market stall under my Oztrail marquee to grow the online business. And it worked. Every Sunday when I would get home from the markets, I would have more Instagram followers, more Facebook orders, Facebook followers, and more online orders, because people who had come to the markets and bought things would take pictures of them, post them on their social media, and then their friends would hop onto the online store and buy from there. So it grew and grew from that point on.
So how do you describe the showroom as it is now in its current form to people? Like, what's your dinner party or barbecue spiel when people ask you, what is the showroom?
Yeah, so today, Showroom is a concept store where I source cool design from around Australia and across the internet. So I like to explain it as a venue that is curated like a magazine, it's ever-changing like a gallery, and of course we sell things like a store.
Yeah, fantastic. So what was the inspiration? Tell us about the moment that you had this market stall and you've got the online store and they're both growing and you saw them working together.
Yeah.
What was the point where you sort of said, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to jump into retail and we're going to do this on a much bigger, I guess, grown-up scale?
Yeah. Through blogging, through my market stall, through my online store, through social media, as I said, I had met so many people who were starting up really interesting businesses and who were outgrowing the available channels to sell. In Brisbane, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for people to have their own pop-up store. And I thought it would be very cool to get a big house and invite brands that I loved, who I knew couldn't afford the overheads of having their own flagship location, but that together we would be able to create a venue where we could each have our own flagship location for our own individual online businesses. So I very much conceived it as a collaborative pop-up space where we would be able to host events and retail pop-ups. Now that model's changed quite a bit since then. I'm not a business background, as I said, I'm a historian, so I love things, I love the story behind things, I love the connection between things and identity, but I'm not a business person. So I think that's been good for me in that I had ideas about the kind of model I wanted to build, and then I've been very flexible if that model needed to be tweaked, or if evidence showed that I should move in a different direction. I was very happy to go with that.
So would you say your lack of business background or formal training has actually been a benefit to you in this journey?
I think so, overall. I think if you have gone through business school, perhaps you've been taught that there are certain ways of doing things. If your business school is really modern, then maybe it's talking about how you can actually go about doing those things in a post-digital phase. But I suspect that a lot of them are still teaching students quite traditional ways of thinking about areas like retail. I think a lot of that's probably not that useful anymore, and I think that an evidence-based, nimble approach is probably the way forward.
Yeah, and let's be honest, retail is changing so rapidly.
It's changing so rapidly.
How could education systems possibly perhaps even keep up?
Yeah.
So when you decided to go into business, how confident were you that this model was going to work? What was your inspiration? Had you seen this work before? Was there a model that you followed from overseas? What was your litmus test for saying this is going to work?
There was no one model, but there are a number of businesses that really inspire me. I think like all good ideas, Showroom is an amalgamation of different bits of inspiration that I cobbled together. So there's a store in New York City called Story, that I think is really great. I admire the concept of Merci in Paris. I think what the Finders Keepers markets are doing here in Australia in the different cities is pretty great for Australian designers and makers, and sort of making buying local into a real event. I think they've done a lot for the idea of buying local in Australia. And markets themselves are very popular here. I mean, a lot of Australians get up in the morning on the weekends and go up to the markets and interact with growers, with makers, with artisans, and people seem to really like that here. And I was confident because of the success of the brands that we were going to be working with in the digital realm. I knew that their followers, that their customers, that their fans were going to want to come and experience a piece of them in the real world. I think that people love shopping. You know, it's something that we do for fun. There are only so many visits to the art gallery and the museum and the movies that a person can take in the course of a week. And so if you're having leisure time and you want to go out with your girlfriends and look at the shops and go for a coffee, I mean, that is what people like to do. It's relaxing, and people want beautiful shops.
And
to
have
look
that,
at.
Yeah, and to have that tactile experience, rather. It's pretty rare that as girls we get around together with a glass of wine and do some online shopping together. It's not the same as going on a Saturday and having that tactile experience. So how did you get stockists, when you launched, how did you get stockists to support such a new idea that perhaps, is a fairly new model? They're used to the online world and probably were successful in their own right, selling their products online. How did you get them to support you when you launched? Yeah,
so I had a very clear idea of what I wanted Showroom to be, and I had a really clear pitch. So I knew that we were going to be a venue where great brands that people really wanted to experience in person were going to be available. most of the business owners that I was pitching did get the whole social media thing and were already conditioned to understand the value of a collaborative approach to business, which I think that's something that social media has really emphasized. It's about community and being part of a team of other people who are going to support and champion you. So I think that was really appealing to stockists. I did also realize quite early on in the piece that not all vendors wanted to have a pop-up.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.